In the sun-scorched Texas landscape of the early 20th century, a new breed of outlaw emerged, the Newton Boys. Not lone gunslingers or desperate Depression-era criminals, but four brothers, Willis, Joe, Jess, and Wiley, from Uvalde County. They became the most successful bank and train robbers in American history. Their story is one of ambition, family, and the changing face of crime as America modernized. The Newton Boys were seen by some as folk heroes, modern-day Robin Hoods who targeted wealthy banks and railroads. They planned meticulously, used the latest technology, and prided themselves on never killing anyone. This code set them apart from the violent gangs that followed. The Roaring Twenties offered a unique window. Automobiles replaced horses, nitroglycerin replaced dynamite, and rural banks were vulnerable. The brothers saw opportunity, not chaos, and approached robbery like entrepreneurs. Their professionalism and restraint made them legends in Texas folklore. This is the story of how four poor farm boys became America's most prolific bandits. It's a tale of their rise, their incredible success, and their inevitable fall. The Newton Boys' legacy is a reflection of an America caught between its outlaw past and a new industrial age. For a brief moment, crime had a gentleman's face. Their legend endures, a testament to a time when outlaws followed a code. The Newton Boys' journey began in the poverty of Uvalde County, Texas. Raised on a cotton farm, the brothers knew hardship and the grind of endless labor. This struggle forged a powerful bond and a resentment towards a system that kept them poor. Willis, the eldest, was the first to break away, learning the criminal trade in prison not from books, but from seasoned outlaws. He returned with a plan, convincing his brothers to join him. For them, crime was a rational choice, a way out of poverty, not a moral failing. They saw bankers and railroad barons as the real thieves and robbing banks as reclaiming what was theirs. Their decision was a rebellion against a rigged system. They weren't driven by violence or notoriety, but by the desire to escape poverty. This motivation shaped their methods and destiny. The cotton fields taught them hardship. Crime taught them opportunity. Together they gambled everything on outsmarting the law. Their bond and ambition would define their criminal career. The Newton Boys' story is rooted in the struggle for a better life. Their path from farm to outlaw was paved by necessity and brotherhood. The Newton Boys quickly earned a reputation as professionals, not killers. Their guiding rule, no shooting. Willis insisted that violence brought only trouble and detention. By avoiding bloodshed, they operated longer and more freely. Their meticulous planning set them apart. They spent weeks gathering intelligence, posing as cattle buyers or land speculators. They studied towns, banks, and routines, learning every detail before striking. Their heists were silent, calculated, and efficient, always at night, never risking innocent lives. They disabled phone lines, cracked vaults, and vanished before dawn. Even witnesses were treated politely, tied up but unharmed. This lack of violence was both strategy and pride. It shaped their image as the gentleman bandits. They weren't common criminals, they were the Newton Boys, America's most successful and least violent robbers. Their professionalism became their legend. In a violent era, they proved crime could have a code. The Newton Boys were pioneers, using technology to revolutionize crime. While others relied on horses, they used fast cars to outrun lawmen and vanish across state lines. Their true edge was nitroglycerin, mastering the art of safecracking with precision and nerve. They souped safes, directing blasts to open vaults without destroying the cash. In Iowa, they blew open an impenetrable vault after weeks of surveillance, escaping with a fortune. Authorities were baffled by the professionalism, suspecting an inside job. The Newtons' blend of fast getaways and surgical safecracking made them unstoppable. They turned robbery from a desperate act into a technical profession. Their methods set a new standard for organized crime. They weren't just robbing banks, they were innovating. For a time, they were ghosts, always one step ahead. The Newton Boys embodied the modern outlaw. Their success was built on brains, not bullets. By 1924, the Newton Boys were masters of their craft, ready for one final spectacular score. Their target? A mail train near Rondu, Illinois, rumored to carry millions in Federal Reserve cash. With a tip from a corrupt postal inspector, they devised their most complex plan yet. On June 12, 1924, Joe Newton boarded the train in disguise, forcing it to stop at the signal. The gang swarmed the mail car using tear gas to subdue clerks. No shots fired, true to their code. The heist was swift and efficient, but chaos struck when an associate, Brent Glasscock, accidentally shot Doc Newton, a friend of Joe's. This single shot shattered their perfect record of non-violence. Despite the mishap, they escaped with over $3 million, the largest train robbery in American history. The wounded man became a liability, a trail for authorities. The Rondu heist was their greatest triumph, and the beginning of their end. Their code had been broken, and the law was closing in. The Newton boys had reached the pinnacle, but fate had turned. Their undoing began with a single accidental shot. The perfect plan had one fatal flaw. The legend of the Newton boys would never be the same. The Newton boys and the infamous Barrow Gang, Bonnie and Clyde, were both Texas outlaws, but their stories couldn't be more different. Bonnie and Clyde were products of the Great Depression, driven by desperation and violence. Their crimes were impulsive, bloody, and left a trail of bodies. The Newton boys, in contrast, operated in the prosperous, roaring 20s. Their heists were calculated, targeting banks and trains for massive profits. They planned meticulously and abhorred violence, priding themselves on never taking a life. For the Newtons, killing was bad for business. Bonnie and Clyde became tragic symbols of doomed rebellion. The Newton boys were remembered for audacity, professionalism, and success. They proved crime could be rational and profitable if you followed the rules. Their legacy is one of brains over bullets. They weren't romanticized like Bonnie and Clyde, but they became legends of a different sort. The Newton boys were the thinking man's outlaws. Their story stands apart in the annals of American crime. The Rondu robbery was the Newton boys' masterpiece and their undoing. The accidental shooting of Doc Newton forced Joe to seek medical help, creating a paper trail. Federal investigators, relentless and resourceful, traced the wounded man to the gang. The Postal Inspection Service led the charge, unraveling the Newtons' web of secrecy. The brothers' discipline faltered. Their one mistake proved fatal. Arrests came swiftly within months. All 4 Newtons were in custody. The evidence was overwhelming, and Doc Newton talked. The era of the gentleman bandit ended as quickly as it began. Years of careful planning unraveled with a single act of carelessness. The Newton boys, who once outsmarted the law, were finally caught by the full force of the federal government. Their greatest heist sealed their fate. The legend of the Newton boys was over. The Newton boys' trial was a national sensation, but the brothers knew the game was up. They pleaded guilty and received relatively light sentences thanks to their non-violent record. The era of the Newton gang was over. They became federal prisoners at Leavenworth. Prison life was a stark contrast to their former freedom, but they served their time. By the time they were released, the world had changed. Small-town banks were better protected, and the age of the gentleman bandit was gone. The brothers returned to Texas, living quietly in Uvalde as ordinary citizens. Their criminal past faded into obscurity, known only to a few. Decades later, in their old age, their story resurfaced. Joe and Willis shared their exploits with a new generation, appearing on TV and in books. They told their stories with pride and nostalgia, unrepentant and charming. The Newton boys outlived their crimes, becoming storytellers in their twilight years. Their legend was reborn, not with robberies, but with tales of adventure. They cashed in on their past, not with nitroglycerin, but with words. The last of the great outlaws became legends in their own time. The Newton boys' story endures as a uniquely American legend. They fascinate us not just as outlaws, but as rebels with a code. Unlike Jesse James or Billy the Kid, they were modern, professional, and restrained. Their legacy is cemented in Texas history, a bridge between the Old West and organized crime. They exploited a system's flaws, amassed a fortune, and lived to tell the tale. Unlike other outlaws, they survived, serving their time and retiring in peace. Their story has a rare third act, a quiet old age, not a violent end. The Newton boys' legend is one of brotherhood, ambition, and a fatal flaw. They were poor farm boys who reached for the stars. And, for a moment, caught them. The most successful and least violent, they carved a unique niche in American crime, remembered not as monsters, but as the last of the gentlemen bandits. Their tale remains a classic American drama, one of daring, code, and survival.